Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Overcoming Your Trauma course. Today's part is going to be about dealing with anxiety and depression. So, anxiety and depression are symptoms of trauma and, well, many other things as well. Anxiety is the fear of the future, and depression is being stuck in the past. That is how I like to view it. So, when you look at anxiety, there are a lot of what if scenarios. So you're contemplating, what if something happens? What if something doesn't go right? What if I screw up? What if my job interview goes poorly tomorrow? And you're basing these what if scenarios on situations that have happened in the past. So you may be referencing or looking back at the past to infer what may happen in the future. And there's a lot of problems with this because you're not actively living in the present moment. You're always worried about what's going to happen to you in the future. All these what if scenarios. Depression, on the other hand, is being stuck in the past. So these would be things that you constantly think about from the past that is traumatizing to you. That, oh, I didn't do this. You have a lot of regret. You didn't get the job interview. Like maybe you have intense anxiety prior to like a job interview, wondering, what if I screw this up? What if I screw that up? Even after the job interview, you may be wondering, oh, what if this happened? What if that happened? And then it starts to go to the past where you begin to think, I screwed that up. I screwed this up, and then you're kind of referencing that again back to past trauma that happened a long, long time ago. Maybe you even think, oh, I can't amount to anything because, that's how I was raised essentially. I can never amount to anything positive because of things that happened to me in the past. So anxiety and depression are symptoms of trauma. And you have to be able to recognize where they stem from. So if you have anxiety, if you have depression, is it triggered from some sort of past trauma? So as we just talked about, perhaps it was your parents who basically kept telling you that you're not going to amount to anything, that you're not going to be successful, that you're just going to be some, person who would never be able to be happy in their life. And maybe that's why, with all the depression and the anxiety that you have, it is triggered from this past incident of what your parents said to you, what they did to you. The thing is, though, the association is still present when it comes to the trauma. So you're still associating that past trauma with how your life is today. You're still thinking, you're still trapped in the past of the situations, the things that happened to you in the past, the words that you were told. You're still forming an association between those negative issues, those negative things that happened, to something now in the present moment. That association is so hard to break that it becomes so challenging that it's going to be very, very hard for you to be able to actively tackle that, because you're basically saying that because of what happened in the past, things have to go in your present life now, even if you're far away from the abuser and they no longer in your life, that it still has to go the same way. We are creatures of habit. So that is essentially what ends up happening. You associate the past issues with the present moment as the past is still controlling your life. And a good way I like to look at this is through visualization. So if you visualize, if you close your eyes and visualize, or even just physically visualize, you will often see like these dark shadows or like these leeches on your body that are essentially from the past, some sort of past trauma that you have that is clinging onto you. It is leeching off of you. It is taking away your ability to thrive and be successful and be happy. And you're letting them suck out any sort of positivity that you could possibly have. That's what they feed off of. That's what these dark shadows and these leeches feed off of. The thing is, though, you're often not aware that you have them. So that's why I like to do this visualization technique. Actively visualize on your own body. And often they can come with physical pain as well. So if you have, perhaps you have a lot of back pain, a lot of neck pain, perhaps you have, certain issues with your legs, your arms, perhaps you have digestive issues, even any sort of number of physical health problems. Well, guess what? They can all stem from this past trauma. If you visualize, if you see these leeches, these dark shadows, they will often be at the parts that you have the most pain, or that there's something that's wrong with your physical body, because that is where the source is originating from. And it could be even tied to past trauma that you have had. So for example, if you have a lot of back pain, maybe it was your parents that kept beating you. Maybe they kept hitting you, hurting you in that spot or around that spot in the back. Or maybe when it comes to like digestive issues that you have, perhaps you have some sort of eating disorder even. That could also stem from what your parents did to you when you were younger. Maybe they didn't feed you enough food and said that, this is all that you need. You're too overweight as it is, even though you were very underweight as a child. Then that's where your source is. That's where these leeches are feeding off of you from. So if you pay attention, if you visualize, if you see them, then that is your opportunity to be able to let go of them and tackle them. Coping mechanisms. You have to find some positive coping mechanisms. So what positive things help you? What positive things help raise your vibration? Now, the thing is, when it comes to trauma and depression and all these sorts of things, when you talk about coping mechanism, literally anything can be a coping mechanism. It doesn't have to be anything positive, because negative coping mechanisms are still a coping mechanism for that individual. A perfect example of this is someone who is, like, for example, an eating disorder, as we talked about. That is often a coping mechanism for a much more serious problem that the person has. Some sort of trauma, that is their coping mechanism. Or someone who cuts themselves, that is a coping mechanism for them. Those are very negative coping mechanisms because it does not help them. It may feel like it helps them. It may relieve some anxiety or stress and build up tension that has come up, and they do that, and it helps them feel better during that time. But that is the only positive thing that happens, because soon enough, it will get to a point where they have to go further, they have to do more, and it becomes more and more serious as they're injuring their body. The only positive thing about that is the relief factor of feeling a little better afterwards. But the process by what they're doing is very, very negative for them, because what it does, it doesn't really raise their vibration. And that's ultimately what you want to find when it comes to a coping mechanism. Someone who is cutting themselves, when they feel very, very low, when they feel very, very bad, and they perform that act, they will have a brief moment where it feels like their vibration raises a little bit, that they feel better. But then what happens afterwards is that it starts to tank down again, and next time it goes down lower than it was before, because they have just done an act to themselves that is very harmful, that they may end up looking at and being ashamed of. And as a result, it lowers their vibration even more. So you want to find things that actively raise your vibration. This can be extremely hard if you're in such a negative headspace and don't know where to begin. So you have to analyze, what are some positive things that can help you? Some people, it can be listening to music. It could be exercising, playing a video game, reading a book, meditation, any sort of thing that can help you in the moment when you're feeling negative to help you cope. In addition to overall raising your vibration, something that is not harmful to you or anyone else. So what are these things then? That is up to you to decide, because no one else can figure out what coping mechanisms are best for you. They can't. Only you can find the right one, because what may be a positive coping mechanism for me could be one that you're not interested in. It doesn't help you. It doesn't bring anything into your life, and maybe something that you don't even like. So find some things that really help you. It will be difficult initially. Maybe you won't feel as good initially. It could help raise your vibration up a little bit, but it's over time. The more you do it, the more you begin to realize the positive effects of it. But you also have to have a word of caution here, is that you don't want a positive coping mechanism to turn into something negative. For example, if exercising helps you, you don't want to become so addicted to exercise that that's all that you do, that you're physically wearing out your body and that you become addicted to it. You don't want that. What about a video game or a movie or television show as a form of coping mechanism? That can be good in a situational basis here, but the moment you begin to become addicted to it, that's all that you want to do, that is a negative coping mechanism. How you recognize that is just how far you are willing to go with it. If it helps you during that time, that is a great thing. The moment you become dependent on it, that is when there is a major red flag here that you need to back off. The moment you say, I can't relax, I can't be stress-free unless I am doing whatever this other positive thing is that you thought was positive, then you know that you have become dependent on it, and it is actually turned into a negative coping mechanism. In the next part, we're talking about dealing with inner hatred and blame.